If you've ever played Devil May Cry, then you can understand when I say, Hell yeah! How you doing everyone? I'm Sam and this is Rooftop Gaming. As you probably know by now, we are going to cover the first Devil May Cry game in this video. This one is not about the story, the graphics or even the gameplay itself. It's all about the style. And this style was created when Capcom hired a guy who knew how to dress, to work on Resident Evil. In 1994, the inexperienced Hideki Kamiya joined Capcom as a game designer to work on Shinji Mikami's Resident Evil. As we all know, the game was a huge success, so naturally Capcom wanted a sequel, but Mikami wasn't interested. Instead, he wanted to develop a brand new game, Dino Crisis, so Kamiya was chosen to direct the next Resident Evil. At first, Mikami didn't want to let go of his creation, so he co-directed the game with Kamiya, a game that is now known as Resident Evil 1.5. This version of the game didn't satisfy either of the directors, so Mikami decided to trust Kamiya and be happy with the role of the producer. The game was rebuilt from ground up to fit Kamiya's vision, and eventually it hit the market in January 1998. Kamiya's directorial debut cost Capcom a lot of time and money, but it was praised by gamers and made millions of dollars in profit within the first month. Happy with Kamiya's work, both Capcom and Mikami asked him to make the next mainline Resident Evil, Resident Evil 3, but Sony changed their plan. Like a good company, Capcom was milking Resident Evil's success and had multiple games being developed under that title. Kamiya's game had a big budget and was planned to be Resident Evil 3, but that plan was scratched when Sony announced PlayStation 2. Capcom didn't want the fans to wait for a long time only for the game to come out on PS1, so instead they asked Kamiya to develop his game for PS2 while they released a side project as Resident Evil 3. The released side project ended up with the title of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and Kamiya's team started to work on Resident Evil 4. Kamiya's vision for his next game was for it to be cool. Too cool. He had this idea of making a stylish action game that revolved around a guy named Tony, who was mentally and physically a superhuman. And due to the game being a Resident Evil, this superness was going to be explained by biotechnology. Kamiya believed that the fixed camera system would undermine all the action mechanisms, so he decided to change the camera system for the first time in the series. And to create a dynamic environment for this new system, Capcom sent a team to Europe to photograph everything necessary, from statues to bricks and stones. When they came back to the studio, they used the same stuff to create textures and tried to make them fit into the Resident Evil universe. Kamiya, however, believed that to be pointless as it could never be done, and eventually managed to convince all his staff that his game was far from a Resident Evil. So Resident Evil 4 was restarted at the end of 2001 under a new leadership, and Kamiya was free to develop his game however he wanted. He rewrote the story based on Dante's Divine Comedy, a hellish world full of demons, and the protagonist, named Dante, was set to save the day. The gameplay was inspired by Onimusha Warlords, not the game itself but a bug that was in it. Due to this bug in Onimusha, enemies could be kept in the air by slashing them repeatedly, and this problem shaped up most of Dante's moves. Dante can use his guns and swords to keep the enemies in the air and stunned, while he slowly drains their lives. Kamiya loved Dante's acrobatic action so much that he got his team Little Devils, to design the game all around his combat style. The world of the game was basically a huge sandbox for Dante to show off his skill, but that too was eventually changed. Towards the end of the development, Kamiya decided to change the open-ended structure to the mission-based system that we now have in the game. He also made sure to make the game hard enough to challenge the casual players and added a ranking system for those who wanted a more demanding experience. Eventually, Resident Evil 4's new title, Devil May Cry, was revealed in November 2000, and the game hit the shelves 9 months later in August 2001. The game begins with an opening crawl that tells the story of the legendary Dark Knight, Sparda. 2000 years ago, a demon put an end to the war between the underworld and the human world. He rose up for justice and closed the gates between the two worlds and spent the remainder of his life ruling over the human world.
Devil May Cry. Sorry, we closed at 9. Again, no password. I can't seem to get any real business. Whoa, slow down, babe. Well, well, what do we have here? Nature calls? It's in the back.
So, you must be the handyman who'll take any dirty job. Am I correct?
Almost. I only take special jobs, if you know what I mean.
You're the man who lost a mother and a brother to evil 20 years ago. The son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparda, Mr. Dante.
Well, the way I figure it, in this business a lot of your kind comes around. And if I kill each one that comes, eventually I should hit the jackpot sooner or later.
In that case, you should be used to this sort of thing.
Are you really the son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparda? Didn't your daddy teach you how to use a sword?
Sword. Time to go to work, guys. Even as a child, I had powers. There's demonic blood in me.
What strength?
You were the first one to know about my vengeance. Looks like I'm getting closer.
It seems that way, but I'm not your enemy. My name is Trish. I came here to seek your help, to put an end to the underworld.
Trish tells Dante that the long-lost emperor of the underworld, Mundus, has resurrected and regained his powers. Mundus plans to finish what he started millenniums ago, to conquer the human world. But to do that, he needs to open a gate between the two worlds, so he can send in his army. The location he has chosen to open the gate is Malay Island.
The castle is above this cliff. Come on, let's go! Ha!
Dante enters the entrance hall of the castle through a secret door that immediately shuts behind him. In here, the player is introduced to the orb system and the general puzzle mechanisms of the game, and then Dante continues on through the castle. He reaches the library of the castle where he finds a large dummy holding a key that can be used to open a door. Dante takes care of the first type of enemies, the marionettes, and then uses the key to unlock the workshop. Inside, Dante finds a biplane that can't be used yet, along with some more marionettes to kill. And then the mission ends. This is the general theme of the missions really. Dante enters, he kills demons, he leaves. I should also mention that some details in each mission might be different depending on the difficulty and the player's luck. The second mission continues behind the doors and through the hallways of the castle. Dante kills more marionettes, and beyond them he discovers an engraving, a seemingly human figure pierced by a sword, a laster. With the Laster comes great power. Devil Trigger is a special demonic ability that lets Dante go berserk and use more of his superhuman powers. I will talk more about Devil Trigger in the gameplay section of the video. After obtaining a Laster, Dante enters a large library where he finds a key and a shotgun. He then heads to the courtyard of the castle where he has to face more marionettes. He also finds a lion statue that is shielded by a force field, but there is nothing he can do with it for now. Dante re-enters the castle again, goes through some more rooms and kills more puppets. Eventually he finds a secret room with another object that helps him open another door. The Staff of Judgment. This secret room leads to the large library that was once home to some marionettes, but now is overrun by a new type of enemy. Sin Scissors are lesser demons that look like Grim Reaper, and they're quite a jump from marionettes. They can phase through walls and even hide there, and they are only vulnerable at head. Dante takes care of them nevertheless, and exits the library to the hall where he found a Laster. He then places the staff on the new engraving to open a new passage. The passage leads to a possessed cathedral, where Dante finds another key object. The Pride of Lion is the key to removing the force field from the lion statue, but it can't be picked up just yet. Instead, it opens a path for Dante so he can prove his worth. The unlocked door leads to an outside bridge with a circular platform at the end. The platform has a tombstone-like object with a lion engraving on it that Dante can interact with. When he attempts to get back to the cathedral, he's struck by lightning. The shock destroys the bridge and Dante falls into the sea below. There he encounters another type of enemy, Sargasso. They are large skull-shaped demons and the simplest enemies in the game. Once Dante takes care of them, they kindly restore the health he lost and he is teleported back to the surface so he can enter the cathedral. Now that he has proven his worth, he can pick up the Pride of Lion, but he's interrupted by the first boss of the game, Phantom.
Surprise. I hope for your sake you got something inside that big body of yours.
Phantom is a quite challenging first boss. His body is armored and immune to most attacks, and the player hasn't progressed far enough in the game to have upgraded the Laster or learned new tricks. Also, Phantom can't be killed in this mission, and once Dante defeats him, he opens a portal and exits the room. Dante uses the door instead. Back in the hall, Phantom attacks Dante again. As a player, you can either fight him again or just exit the hall into one of the rooms. Either way, Dante makes his way to the courtyard with the lion statue and removes the force shield. He then destroys the statue to unlock the door above it, but instead it resurrects a new type of enemy, an ancient cat-like demon named Shadow, which acts as a mini boss fight. Once Dante takes care of it, a new door opens, leading to a tall tower that provides access to the Castellan's private room. There is also a platform in the tower that Dante must reach to find another object, a sword named Death Sentence. Dante then places it inside a statue in the Castellan's room to acquire another object called Melancholy Soul.
This stinking hole was the last place I thought I'd find anyone with some guts.
Even though the first boss isn't really defeated, the second one is introduced, Nello Angelo. The first game doesn't reveal much about him except that he's a demon working for Mundus. But in the later games we learn that he's actually Dante's twin brother, Virgil, who has been enslaved by Mundus and imprisoned inside a Black Knight armor. Dante faces Nello Angelo in an open-roofed arena, but right when he thinks he has won, Nello overpowers him. He sees Dante's amulet, which is a gift from their mother, and regains his consciousness for a moment, causing him to disappear. Now that Dante has the melancholy soul, he must get it to the door at the bottom of the tower before its energy runs out. The player is given a 3-minute timer to complete this mission, and they can skip fighting to finish the mission faster. Although there is a shadow that must be killed in order to open the door to the tower. The door leads to the sewers beneath the castle, and the home to a new type of enemy, Beelzebub. As their name suggests, they are demonic flies. Although they aren't that tough, they can be quite annoying since they attack in groups. The sewers are divided into 2 parts with a large gate between them. To cross the gate, Dante needs a key which he can find in the same room where he first encounters the Beelzebub. Once past the gate, Dante reaches another semi-boss fight, Death Scissors. It is too strong to be a regular enemy, but it lacks a life bar, so it doesn't really qualify as a full boss fight. When done with the Death Scissors, Dante can find another key, the Guiding Light. Now that Dante has the key, he must head to the Castellan's room to use it. Similar to the Melancholy Soul, the Guiding Light also has a timer, but this time the timer is Dante's health. On his way, Dante is attacked by many enemies including the lava spider, Phantom. The enemies do double the damage here since they not only attack but also waste time. After reaching the room, Dante uses the key on the panel on the wall and unlocks the door. The path beyond the door leads Dante to a strange room full of candles, followed by another open-roofed arena, an obvious boss fight. This fight marks the end of the hallway chases as it's Phantom's last attempt against Dante.
You're right. I'm his son, Dante. Sweet dreams.
Defeated the Phantom. Incredible power.
With Phantom out of the way, Dante continues his quest. Soon he finds a trident, a grenade gun, and a crack in the ground that leads to a secret room. The room houses a machine that controls the drawbridge. He activates it and then uses the ladders to enter another room with a different machine. This one controls the portcullis. Dante uses the trident to open the gates and rushes to the exit before the gates close down again. Dante manages to leave the castle and cross the bridge. He then uses a set of stairs to reach another large arena where a new type of enemy is introduced. Blades are lizard-like demons that are incredibly fast despite their heavy armors. When done with the blades, Dante proceeds through the only open path, solves a platforming puzzle and finds a new weapon, Ifrit. Once Dante has the gauntlets, he leaves the room and returns back to the arena to face the third boss of the game. Griffon is a demonic bird with more complicated abilities than Phantom, and like Phantom, Griffon too must be fought multiple times. After defeating Griffon, Dante uses Ifrit to open a second gate, beyond which another enemy is introduced. Fetishes are buffed versions of marionettes. They are stronger, harder to kill, and have a wider range of attacks. Like before, Dante goes from room to room, fights more enemies, and eventually reaches a canyon. Soon Dante finds an orb of light among the demons he is fighting, and when he frees the orb, it shows him the correct path. If the player goes the wrong path or falls too far behind, they will have to replay the mission from the beginning. With the help of the orb, Dante reaches a wooden archway and walks into the mist. The mist leads him to another large arena where he meets yet another enemy. Cyclops are like mini phantoms. They look similar and try to mimic Phantom's moves, but they are nowhere near as dangerous. Once they are defeated, the gate is unlocked and Dante can continue on into a greenhouse. As soon as Dante crosses the door, he is ambushed by Death's Scythe, the most powerful member of the Sin family. He also has to fight some blades while searching the greenhouse for the Sign of Chastity, another key item in the game. He then can go on to the other room and use the Sign of Chastity to get another item, the Chalice. But right after Dante picks it up, he's interrupted by Nello Angelo. This time, Nello is stronger and puts up a tougher fight than before. However, Dante still manages to defeat him and Nello disappears into the sky once again. With Nello gone, Dante should find a way up and place the chalice on the golden statue to open yet another door. Behind the door lies a set of underground tunnels filled with marionettes. The tunnels lead Dante to a large cave that shelters a wrecked pirate ship. To reach the ship, Dante has to enter the water, which this time is shown from a POV perspective. In these underwater sections, Dante can breathe underwater, which is unlike the previous underwater sections. I really couldn't find anything about Dante breathing underwater being a lore thing or a gameplay thing. Anyways, Dante makes his way to the deck, but in order to enter the captain's room, he has to fight another Death Scythe. After it's done, he can try the door again. This time, Griffon is faster and does everything to keep Dante from getting close. But still, Dante defeats him and now he can safely pass through the door. In Captain's room, Dante finds another key item, the Staff of Hermes. As soon as he picks it up, the ship begins to sink and the door jams. The only way out is to swim back to the hold, which is crawling with blades, and escape through a crack in the wall. Back on land, Dante uses another tunnel to get back to the surface, but instead it takes him to a series of rooms where he finds a broken elevator. In these rooms he finds another item, the emblem shield, and manages to activate the elevator to go back up. Dante then fights multiple enemies and eventually finds his way back to the arena near where he first found the Ifrit. Now that he has the emblem shield, he can open 2 of the 3 locked doors left in the area. They each lead the player down a different path, but ultimately they both lead to the same thing, the pair of lances. This item lets Dante open the remaining door and enter the Colosseum. Once inside, Dante suddenly hears a voice in his head demanding a sacrifice. And then Griffon shows up for the last time. Griffon is stronger than ever, but still follows the same attack pattern as before. Dante defeats him for the 3rd and final time and gives the Colosseum the sacrifice it wants.
Yours are definitely the powers of Sparda. Even more so. But I cannot let you live. I serve my master Mundus.
You can't fight with that wound.
Mighty is the power of Mundus. Master, grant me one last surge of power. The power to finish him. Master Mundus. Griffin, you have failed me. You are no longer worthy. Master! No! Please, no! Master, no!
Three-eyed.
You beat him. Maybe it was too easy for you.
Mundus. His heinous ways make me sick, killing even his own, like they were nothing. He's the one that took the life of my mother, my brother, and Shirley. My mother used to always tell me that my father was a man who fought for the weak. He had courage and a righteous heart. In the name of my father, I will kill Mundus.
Dante uses the fallen column as an elevator to go down and retrieve another item, the Wheel of Destiny. Now Dante has to make his way all the way back to the drawbridge he crossed earlier and return to the castle itself. The entrance hall of the castle is ominously dark and the huge Mundus statue is missing. However, new demons are waiting to welcome Dante. Plasmas are shapeshifters that start out as bats, but they can shift into human form to mimic Dante's moves. They also can create up to 3 duplicates of themselves and attack Dante in groups. Dante now needs to make his way to the cathedral where he previously found the Pride of Lion. But now the room has a pool of strange liquid in the center, and from this pool rises the 4th boss of the game, Nightmare. Nightmare is a demonic bioweapon tank that can shift into an invulnerable pool of liquid. For some players it is also the hardest boss in the game, but Dante still defeats it with his protagonist's power. He then should cross the broken bridge and use the Staff of Hermes on the other side to open 2 portals. Dante enters the portal on the left, which leads to a guard room, and from there he goes through another portal. In this new room, Dante faces another type of enemy called Frost. They are buffed versions of blades and have ice elemental powers, so naturally they can only be hurt using Ifrit. After dealing with the Frost, Dante gets inside the hallway which leads to a strange room. This room contains a life-size T-Rex skeleton that shoots fireballs at Dante. No, I didn't make that up. Dante must solve a puzzle in this room to get another item called Quicksilver, which can be used to open another door in the hallway. Behind this door lies Nello Angelo's last fight.
A man with guts and honor. I like that. But it's a shame you serve Mundus.
Nello is now at his final and strongest form. He is stronger, faster, and many of his weak points are gone. Nevertheless, Dante defeats him and Nello vanishes into thin air for the last time.
Virgin, Dante, happy birthday.
Wow! I want chocolate! No, I want chocolate!
Trish, Virgil has been defeated. You know what you must do. Now go.
Yes, Master.
The amulet turns Dante's original sword, Force Eagle, into its true form, Sparda, named after its original owner. Unlike Ifrit and Elastor, Sparda doesn't have Devil Trigger. Yet. After dealing with Nello Angelo, Dante goes to the guard room and enters another portal. This time, he's teleported to a submerged dungeon from which he can reach a tall tower, similar to the one that provided access to the Castellan's room. At the top of this tower is a door that opens to a familiar courtyard. Instead of the lion statue, there is a device that would give Dante another item, but before it can, Nightmare shows up. This time it's a bit stronger but still similar to before, so Dante defeats him again and picks up the elixir from the device. Dante then uses a series of portals to get back to the broken bridge and takes a portal on the right to the Castellan's room. There he uses the elixir to access the mirror world. The mirror world is a distorted, twisted version of the real world, serving as the middle ground between the human world and the underworld. In this strange world, Dante finds another object, the Philosopher's Stone, and is immediately ambushed by the last group of enemies. Nobodies are like Frankenstein monkeys that deal a lot of damage and take a long time to kill. Once Dante defeats them, he goes back to the real world, to the broken bridge, and then to the cathedral. Nightmare's pool of liquid is still in the room, so Dante uses it to enter the gateway to the underworld. The gateway protects the underworld using a demonic barrier, but Dante removes it using the Philosopher's Stone. Now that he is in the underworld, he sets out to find Mundus to stop the upcoming war. But before he can make much progress, he is interrupted by the nightmare for the last time.
Dante! Dante! Help me!
Trish!
This boss fight is arguably the hardest one in the game, and the last entertaining one. Dante puts up a tough fight against Nightmare, and right before finishing it off, Trish reveals her true face. She attacks Dante and teams up with Nightmare to defeat him, but they still can't overpower Dante. He ends the Nightmare, but the energy from its death causes one of the columns to fall onto Trish.
Dante! Dante, why did you save my life?
Because you look like my mother. Now get out of my sight. The next time we meet, it won't be like this.
Dante!
Don't come any closer, you devil! You may look like my mother, but you're nowhere close to her. You have no soul. You have the face, but you'll never have her fire!
Dante ventures deeper into the underworld, eventually reaching a locked door that leads to Mundus. To open it, Dante must jumpstart a giant heart that is attached to the door by large veins. The veins stretch throughout the environment, and Dante has to destroy some seals that are stopping the blood from flowing. Once all the seals are gone, the final gate opens.
Face a Sparda. Strange fate, isn't it?
Strange and ironic that it will end the same way.
Irony has favored you this time. Look, there.
Trish!
Don't even think about it. Blink. She dies.
You!
Dante!
So sad that humans will always be humans. No more. Has the Sparda blood been spoiled over the ages? Now, die!
Trish! No!
Useless scum. Failure is one thing, but taking an odd behavior like that... What is the matter? It is time to end your pitiful life.
How much longer are you going to keep zapping? Come out and show yourself, Mundus!
Those eyes. Deep in them, I see the same light as in Sparda's eyes.
Why my mother?
That useless being. If you need a mother, I can create it. As many as you want. Just like I created Trish.
Silence!
Mundus drags Dante with himself into the void, where Dante transforms into Sparda. The first phase of the fight is done in this void, styled like a shoot 'em up, unlike any other fight in the game. Once Mundus is defeated, both he and Dante fall to the ground. Dante returns to his normal form, while Mundus is left sitting in a pool of lava. In this phase, Dante can use only the Sparda sword with its devil trigger unlocked, although this phase is mostly a ranged fight. Eventually, Dante defeats Mundus, destroys a gateway to the human world, and says goodbye to Trish.
My mother risked her life for me, and now you too. I should have saved you. I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
This was my mother's. Now I'm giving it to you. My father's also here now. Rest in peace.
Dante now has a 5-minute timer to leave the island before it's destroyed. He races back to the human world, making his way to the workshop, all while fighting enemies that try to slow him down. The plane in the workshop could be his ticket off the island, unless something stops him.
Has been opened. Dante, you are not getting away. This is where you will die.
I'm not going anywhere! Besides, there's no place to go! Look around! This'll be your burial ground as well.
Mundus, though weak and defeated, makes one final attempt to stop Dante. At the end of the day, he is still the lord of the underworld and stronger than Dante. That's when Trish comes to help.
No.
Dante. You'll be okay. You can do it.
What? Mother.
Dante, use my power!
Dante channels both his and Trish's powers into his guns and shoots Mundus back to hell.
Goodbye. And when you do come back, give my regards to my son, will ya?
Trish.
Dante. Dante.
Trish. Devils never cry. These tears. Tears are a gift only humans have.
We're too late.
No, Trish. It's never too late. And we humans never give up. Are you ready?
Yes!
Let's rock.
The sky! It's so clear! So blue!
The sky is fair. It'll always be above everyone's head, no different.
Like the sky. I feel like my heart is becoming clear.
Let's not forget, though, the Underworld's evil is still alive. They will someday return.
There's no need to worry, right? Because the world has the legendary Dark Knight Dante. And his sidekick. Devil never cry. Yes? Okay, great. Where's the place? We'll be right there. This one has the password. Sounds heavy.
Okay, let's get it over with in 10 minutes. Can't let a single one of those suckers live.
5 minutes.
More than enough. Devil May Cry.
By now you should probably know that the story wasn't what sold the game. All the things that happened can be summarized in a paragraph or two. A half-demon demon hunter is asked to kill the king of demons before he brings a war to Earth, and he falls in love with the girl who asks him to do such, which also happens to be an exact copy of his mother. Quite messed up if you think about it. He then finds out that she was working with the Demon King all along, but she eventually redeems herself through the power of love and kindness. The Demon King is defeated and the two live together happily ever after. There are two things that carry all the story on their backs: the protagonist and the world building. Dante is definitely a one-dimensional character, at least at this point in the franchise. But he's great at it. He's easygoing, cracks jokes to lighten up the mood, and he's just straight up cool. Leather pants, leather boots, leather jacket. You have to have a lot of charisma to rock that much leather, and this guy simply has it. I know there is much more to his character than liking pizza and wearing leather pants, but those stuff are added in the next games. From the storytelling perspective, the world building is kind of bland. One side is people, good, and one side is demons, bad. People are trying to live their lives, but demons are corrupt and want more power, so they decide to attack the people and conquer their world. Again, it's very bland, but it works perfectly fine. I actually think if it was more complicated, it would make the game less fun. But from the visual perspective, it's one of a kind. As I mentioned in the Horror and Cool, the developers went all the way to Europe to take pictures for inspiration, and the result is a beautiful gothic castle, even though it feels more like a maze. There are definitely some questionable aspects to it, like why would someone put a bedroom on top of a tower that is connected directly to the sewers? But still, it's visual greatness. The hell, or the underworld, is also just like one would imagine. Fire, void, living organs out in the open. It's literally Dante's Inferno. Enemies and characters are also designed very entertaining, as in good people are attractive and bad people are not. That's all the point I'm gonna make about Trish, and that she reminds me of Mona Sachs. I don't really have much else to say about the character designs really. They're cool, I guess, especially Nello Angelo. The last thing I want to say about the visuals is that the game is from 2001. When comparing it to other games that came out that year, Devil May Cry easily stands out as one of the top 3 most beautiful games. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for, the gameplay. Cool, bravo, awesome, stylish. The game really speaks for itself. Dante's arsenal is divided into 2, primary and melee, secondary and ranged. Primary weapons include Force Edge, which later becomes Sparda, Elaster and Ifrit. Force Edge is just a basic sword that you have to use until you find Elaster, and Elaster is my personal favorite. The Thunder Sword gives Dante great sets of moves. You can sting, you can swing, you can mix it with Devil Trigger to turn into Dante's demonic mode and shoot fucking lightnings. The next primary weapon you find in the game is Ifrit, a dragon head shaped gauntlet that turns Dante's fists into fireballs. There was a reason I shouted hell yeah at the beginning of this video. Ifrit lets you shoot fireballs, kick fireballs, punch fireballs, and some other fiery things. And the last primary weapon you find in the game is Sparda, and right after Nello's last fight. Sparda is kind of useless up until Mundus' boss fight, but then its Devil Trigger is unlocked and you can use a combined moveset of both Elaster and Ifrit. But I think it fails to outperform either of them. It just has a bit of both worlds. The secondary weapons are just a bunch of guns. Shotguns, grenade guns, demon guns, etc. The most important one of them is Dante's pistols, Ebony and Ivory. Unfortunately, they have more lore value than gameplay value. They are the first secondary weapon in the game and there is usually a better alternative to choose. They all have the same set of moves though, pulling the trigger. The only performative difference is how many and how fast bullets would be shot. The more important thing about the gameplay is the fluidity and combos, and it doesn't matter how much I talk about it, you have to experience the game to understand it. Dante is more like a gymnast with a magic wand, and the longer you pause between his shenanigans, the lower your score would be. In this game, it starts with Doll, which is just slowly slashing the demons, and it goes all the way up to Stylish. At that point, Dante juggles the monsters until they turn into red orbs. I intentionally talk little about this aspect of the gameplay, although it's probably the most important thing in the game, because as I said, it's really about the experience and the words can never do it justice. Team Little Devil also introduced a brand new concept to the gaming industry, Devil Trigger. Before Devil May Cry, the idea of a character transforming into a greater and stronger form was already done, but they were all story-driven or event-driven mechanisms. In Devil May Cry, Dante can turn into a stronger form of himself, which is literally his devil form. But in order to do that, the player needs to fill up the Devil Trigger runes by fighting more and better. so instead of being just a plot device, it's a gameplay device. As soon as you fill up at least 3 runes, you can enter the Devil Trigger state, and the reward for fighting good is more power to fight even better. If you've been paying attention, then you must know that some weapons in the game don't allow Dante to enter the Devil Trigger state. From what I've learned at this point in his story, Dante is weaker than he will be, so even though Devil Trigger is his natural power, he needs a Devil Arm to channel it. Devil Arms are strong demonic weapons like a Lacer, Ifrit, and eventually Sparda. They are usually the manifestation of a lost demon's soul. Not only they are very powerful on their own, they also help Dante reach Devil Trigger until he is strong enough to do it on his own. The orbs that I mentioned control the upgrading system of the game. Before each mission or using the divinity statue while in the mission, you can access a shop. There you can use red orbs to unlock upgrades for a Lacer and Ifrit, or exchange them for other orbs. As you have guessed, red orbs are the currency of the game, and they are mostly gained by killing enemies. Other than red orbs, you can also find or sometimes buy other orbs too, including yellow, purple, blue, and green. Yellow orbs allow the player to restart the mission from a checkpoint after they're killed. If you run out of them and you die, you have to replay the whole mission. Purple orbs increase the length of Devil Trigger, so the player can stay in that state longer. Blue orbs increase the size of life bar and refill it if needed. At max, the player would have 2 life bars at the maximum length and 10 Devil Trigger runes. And green orbs can be gathered after killing some enemies, and it refills the life bar. Devil May Cry is old man's hard game. If you compare it now to Elden Ring or whatnot, it is actually quite easy, especially considering that it gave you the option to choose the difficulty. But for 2001, for a game that was supposed to be a Resident Evil, having about a dozen boss fights was at least overwhelming to players. There is an overall 5 bosses in the game: Phantom, Nello Angelo, Griffon, Nightmare, and Mundus. They all put up a hard fight and can finish you off if you make a mistake. Phantom shows up first in the 3rd mission of the game and is already a hard boss for such an early point in the game. Nello is my favorite boss, and it manages to be fun and challenging at the same time. Griffon is also pretty good and fun, but Nightmare is just a pain in the ass. It's probably the hardest one and the most annoying one, but at least it was an actual boss fight, unlike Mundus. While fighting Mundus, the game suddenly becomes an arcade shooter, and ignores the line between being challenging and a clusterfuck. Enemies are also really smart for a 24-year-old game. They are aggressive and they usually attack in groups. There are some more enemies in the game that, even though they are not boss fights, they take even more effort than a boss would, like the enemy Shadow or Blaze when there is more than 2 of them. You can never underestimate who you are fighting, unless it's a marionette. But all this action and difficult fights are tied together using one thing: music. The soundtrack to the first game is not as iconic as the 3rd or the 5th game, but it's fantastic. Just like some aspects of the gameplay, the music also can't be done justice by simply talking about it. You have to listen to it for yourself. You don't even need to know about the game. When you hear these tunes, you just get the urge to beat up some demons. The sound effect and the voice acting also complement the game. I couldn't find anything about how they actually recorded these sounds and how they managed to make them so satisfying. The voice acting, as I said, is very good, which is really surprising. I think I should point out again that Devil May Cry was made in the year 2000 and in Japan. There weren't many tools for translating the script correctly, and there definitely weren't many fluent English speakers to dub the characters. The first game had Drew Coombs as the voice actor of Dante.
Because you look like my mother. Now get out of my sight.
The second game had a different voice actor, and then by the 3rd one, Capcom hired Ruben Langdon, which remained the voice of Dante. But still, I think Drew Coombs did a pretty good job voicing Dante, and his seemingly arrogant attitude. Both the original game and the remastered have their own flaws, with the remastered one being more technically imbalanced. But the problems are ignorable and won't affect your playthrough that much. So if you haven't played it yet, why are you watching this video? And give it a shot if you have the time. Devil May Cry was released in 2001 for PS2 to an audience that had never seen anything like it. The game became legendary like the tale it was telling and managed to get an average score of 94. The critics praised basically everything about the game. The gameplay innovations, the visuals, the camera, etc. Of course it received criticism too, mostly for the difficulty and a camera system that wasn't perfected. But overall the game did fantastic. The critics loved it, the fans loved it, and it sold millions. Devil May Cry has sold almost 7 million copies, with at least 2 million copies being sold on PlayStation 2, which makes it one of the highest selling games on that console. You can also find it in many lists like the best games of PS2, the best games of 2001, or even the best games of all time. One of the most important effects of it was the creation of hack and slash subgenre. Not only Devil May Cry became an iconic franchise that spawned many games, comics, and even a TV show, it also paved the way for other games too. God of War, Bayonetta, Lollipop Chainsaw, Darksiders, and many more games that are directly or indirectly inspired by Devil May Cry. Playing Devil May Cry today wouldn't be so hard to do, since the first 3 games are remastered and compiled into the HD collection. And even though the franchise is alive and doesn't need a restart, it still would be fun to see the first game remade, like the many Resident Evil games. The game is great already, but many of the mechanisms were perfected later in the sequels, and that would make the experience even better. If you haven't played the game, I recommend you do, and if you have, well, leave a comment and tell us what you think about it. Also, don't forget to mention what other games you want us to make a video about. And if you enjoyed this video, share, like, and drop another comment for the sake of the algorithm. If the video reaches 1000 views in less than a month, we will start working on the second game's retrospective as soon as possible. By the way, if you have more time to kill, stick around for the extras. This is Rooftop Gaming.
Let's rock, baby.
As I mentioned in the Son of Sparda section, Nello Angelo is actually Dante's twin brother Virgil, but how and why Virgil became Nello Angelo was revealed in the sequels, and I'll try to do my best in explaining it without spoiling major events. In Devil May Cry 3, which is actually a prequel to the first game, the injured Virgil casts himself into the depth of the underworld. There he is confronted by Mundus, and despite not being in the best shape, he tries to fight him believing that he is going to win, just like his father. But instead, he is defeated by Mundus. He takes Virgil's heart, ego, and will away from him and recreates him as Nello Angelo, a set of cursed armor holding in what is left of Virgil. At first, Virgil tries to set himself free, but Mundus uses Virgil's half of the perfect amulet to take control of him, in which he is successful. Mundus then uses Nello Angelo as his tool against Dante during the first game. But upon seeing Dante's half of the amulet, Virgil starts to gain his consciousness back and weakens Mundus's control. By the end of the first game, Dante defeats Mundus and weakens him, which results in Virgil freeing himself. The details of how he really did it is unknown.
Sword. Time to go to work, guys.
Like all other games, Devil May Cry went through many changes during the development. Many things were cut from the game and didn't make it to the last product, and I think some of them are interesting to go through. For example, Virgil was originally a playable character, although we don't really know whether he was going to be the protagonist, lead some missions, or something else. There also seemed to be more story in the game, revealing the backstory of Dante and Sparda. The environments were planned to be more varied, and there were more bosses involved. But the thing that really caught my attention was the multiplayer concept of the game. It was probably a couch co-op mode where 2 or even more players could play the game together. I also found some old reports of the developers working on a versus mode, which could have been crazy, but unfortunately none of them made it to the final cut. Knowing that Devil May Cry was going to be Resident Evil 4 kind of affected my experience with the game. I couldn't just play it and not see the similarities between the two. In Resident Evil 4, the common enemies are Ganados, people who have lost their minds and are being controlled by Las Plagas, kind of like puppets, like marionettes. A large Gothic castle is a major location in both games. Leon and Dante look very similar. They are both tricked and used by a femme fatale, and have to fight an old friend that is now an enemy. And most importantly, the player has to go back and forth a lot to finish the quest of saving the world. Maybe in a different universe, nothing is really different.